welcome. You are tuning into the Parent Camp Podcast. Today we are talking to two beautiful visionaries behind this concept. I will let these two ladies introduce themselves. If you can join me, Miss Julie Powell, Laura Gilchrist. Julie, who are you? Laura, who are you?
Hi, April. I'm Julie Pyle. I'm the president of ParentCamp. I'm a parent. I'm not an educator, so I'm the parent side of the house. And I've been an involved parent since my daughter was in kindergarten. I knew when she was little, I wanted to be involved in the school. I knew it was important. Education's important in our family, and got involved in the PTA. Started working on the PTA's website, and then things just kind of steamrolled from there. Got tapped to be in different committees in the district, and learned the power of the community and parents coming together for our kids and the energy that creates in the schools.
I like it, Julie. Come on, Miss Laura, tell us who you are.
Well, hello, April. I am Laura Gilchrist. I, like Julie and I like to say, she's the parent side of the house, and I'm the teacher, the education side of the house. I taught middle schoolers for 20 years. Then I was an instructional coach for 3 years. And, as a teacher, I taught about 2,000 kids. And I reflected back, how many parents did I actually know? The kids of whom I knew their parents, there was a different bond with them when you know their parents. The kids know it, the teachers know it, and the parents know it. And when I was growing up, if my mom knew one of my teachers, I just loved that. I'd be like, did she say something? Did you talk to her? I loved it. It just was so soul sustaining for me. So I knew there's got to be a way. It's good for kids. It's good for us all to be connected in relationships. And, every year of teaching the team I was on, we would send, a s'more out to all the families every single day with pictures and questions, and families loved that. But we still didn't get to the connection with each other. So that is part of my drive and also my growing up and my, the things that I've lived through, this need for community, family, school, community connection.
So I am a parent who stumbled across Parent Camp a few years ago when I moved to Kentucky. And I'm one of those people who's so interested in the journey. Like, how did you all get here? This is such an awesome concept. And I'm sure a lot of listeners, some who are familiar with your brand, others who may not, I'm interested to know the story behind Parent Camp. You two, you say, Julie, you are the parent side. You talked about PTA and you're in far as on the back end. Laura, you're mentioning as a teacher who taught so many students. Now, did you two know each other? How did you two meet?
Well, it actually goes back to, I believe, 2014. Is that right,
okay.
Laura?
Yeah.
So I was actively involved on Twitter, and there are a ton of educators on Twitter. And it was coming into summertime, and someone was doing a book study. It was a teacher, an educator, was leading this book study, and they were going to use a tool called Voxer. And the book was Beyond the Bake Sale by Ann Henderson and Karen Mack. And of course, that being a family engagement, parent engagement book, and I had read the book before, I jumped on this book study. Well, it was a global book study. So we had people from all over the world. There was one from Australia, there were people from England. And the beauty of the tool Voxer is it's asynchronous communication. So you can leave messages and leave them and listen to them at your convenience. And so Laura and I met through this book study.
Gotcha.
And just really connected.
Gotcha. And so you all met virtually, not in person, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And
Correct.
So Laura, were you still teaching during this time or?
Yeah, I was still teaching. And, family engagement, caught my eye. I'm like, this is important. And I was excited that it was a global book study. It was exciting and fun because we were all connected by voice on Voxer.
Okay. So we're still getting to know each other, getting to know you, getting to know all about you. Okay. And then at what point do you all go beyond just talking about, and what was the name of the book again, Julie? I want to make sure I catch that.
So it's Beyond the Bake Sale by Ann Henderson and Karen Mapp. And it's kind of considered the Bible of family engagement.
I like that. Okay. Okay. So Julie, I'm interested to know at what point when after you and Laura, you both have done the Beyond the Bake Sale and you've seen each other, have you all met in person at any point? What kind of started the next level to where you and Laura started to pick each other's brains?
Actually, we hadn't met in person yet. We were still using Voxer.
Gotcha.
I can't remember when the first time was we met in person. So we had chatted on Voxer, but then we started playing around with virtual tools. And this was probably 2015, 2016. And we stumbled across Zoom. So we were using Zoom a long time before the rest of the world was. And so when COVID happened, we're like, welcome to our world. This is how we function. So we had met in person using Zoom, virtually, but it wasn't for a few years before we actually met in person and were able to give each other hugs. So I had started to attend ed camps here locally. So ed camps is a professional development opportunity for educators, and they're very free-flowing, not a lot of structure to them. They have what's called a board, which is a session grid. So they'll have like 5 or 6 different opportunities for sessions and usually 6 to 8 rooms. And when you walk in, the grid is blank. There's no topics on it, which is quite scary. So people come in and whatever they're excited about or things they've learned and they want to share goes up on this grid. And it's just very random. And then when the day kind of starts is you choose wherever you want to go. So whatever you want to learn about. So as a parent, I found out about these and was just really curious. I wanted to learn about what was kind of coming down the pike in education, because if these educators were really excited about something, they were going to start pulling it into their classrooms. And so I learned about blended learning. I learned about flipping classrooms, what that terminology meant. The different tools that the schools were using, because a lot of times school districts were there and were supportive of it because it was professional development for teachers. And so I learned a ton, and Laura and I had chit-chatted about our experiences there, and she'll talk about how she's been involved in ed camps. But we kind of started tossing around the idea of, well, what if we did this for parents and families too?
Gotcha.
Like, what would it look like?
Gotcha. So, Laura, where was Julie? So, had you heard of ed camps? Because you two aren't even in the same state, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. So, had she heard anything about ed camps when Julie brought it to your attention as an educator? Was this something you were already familiar with, or what were your thoughts when she brought this idea to you about ed camp?
Well, ed camps changed my life. So I was, I already knew him. She already knew about it. But my experience, I went to my first ed camp in Omaha, Nebraska. I live in Kansas City.
Gotcha.
And I went up by myself because I just heard about it. And I had a friend who told me, he's like, you should go. It was Kyle Pace. And he's like, you should go. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went up there, and there's choice and voice, and you're seen and heard in a different way. It meets a lot of needs. And so I organized ed camps in Kansas City with
gotcha.
And so in Parent Camp, we said, what could we do something like this with family school communities, through the school? Could we do something like this? And we knew that we had to make changes because we had to make some changes. And so we did, and we added things to it, to the model. So the core of the movements and things are from EdCamp, and we're, just forever grateful for that. And it's changed so many lives. And the model now is suited for family, school, community, but also can be used. We've done industry camps. We've done PD camps. You can do it virtual, in person. The model is really an energy model. And we added, like dialogue is a huge piece. How do you do dialogue? How do you facilitate?
Say more.
Who facilitates? Do we bring in the facilitators? No, the facilitators are from your family, school, community. But we train you in how to do it, because that's that's really key. And then there's purpose into our model of Parent Camp. There's connection. It's always connection. And then it's learning. We call it strengthening, but learning things that'll impact you and collaborating on things. So this, when a school undertakes this in a school community, it emerges with you. It's an emergent model, and people, you just journey through it together, and you don't know where you're going to come out on the other side. You take the feedback every time, and you just grow with it. And it flies in the face of what we're used to in education.
I was just about to say that. Yes. Okay, so that's very interesting to know. As an educator, what did you see as far as relationships with you and parents? And Julie, I'm interested for you to follow up with that as well. What was your interaction as a parent with educators? So were you starting to see individually, were you, Laura, starting to see there is something that's missing from the current model that we have as educators when it comes to working with parents? Julie, were you thinking, like, I'm always interested to know, like, okay, I'm visually seeing you all talking through Voxer. Yay. Reading the book. Yay. She's going to Ed Camp, but she's also hosting Ed Camp. Are you both individually seeing a missing piece? So what brought you two together to see, like, there's something that's missing?
I was thinking in my head as Laura was talking, and you just like queued this up perfectly, April, because so I was attending Ed camps. Laura was doing Ed camps, and the freedom that you feel at Ed camps, you don't feel at traditional family engagement events.
Gotcha.
And so I would go to, an event at the school, and it's the typical, somebody's talking, you're sitting in rows. You might chit chat with some people before or after, and depending on the length of time, they may allow questions, they may not. And so I got to the point of, I was frustrated when I went to some of the events at the schools or in districts, because I had felt this freedom at an Ed camp and this energy that was going on. And here I am in this kind of compliance situation. And so that was like, okay, what can we do about this? Because the educators are feeling this freedom. We want the parents to feel the same thing too. And so that's how we kind of like, okay, we got to push against the grain kind of thing, push against the norm. And the educators, when dealing with families, didn't know any better. I mean, that's the way family engagement events have been done for years. And it kind of a little bit goes back to the power differential, because educators are held higher to, people look up to them, students look up to them, parents look up, they're the professionals. And just by nature, they have more power. And so over time, just as normalcy came out, or came around, and that when there was family engagement events done, we looked to the educators as the experts. But as individuals, we have so many experiences and things to share. But when you set up that compliance where you have somebody talking and you can't share your experiences, you get frustration and you don't feel valued.
Laura, were you sensing that though as an educator? sensing the frustration that parents feel that Julie's talking about?
So at an ed camp, the frustration I felt was as a teacher in traditional PD. You go to an ed camp and you feel this, you can liberate all the gifts of your lived experience and connect them with each other. And so, once you go to an ed camp as a teacher, when you sit in traditional rows and you have to listen, and all your gifts and your passions and the things you want to contribute are just locked up inside of you and you can't connect with other people, it feels stifling. Like we have a high need to contribute. And when we can't connect and contribute, like it's maladaptive. It brings dis-ease. Like it's not natural. So from a teacher perspective, I knew that teachers needed this kind of thing as well. But it goes back to what we've always done. We're just familiar with it. And that's how the whole system runs. So Julie and I we wanted to liberate. We wanted to bring everyone together and build a model that really does the work of building relationships. Not just we've got to build relationships, but it is the actual thing where people come together in these circles. And the way that we've designed the conditions, people can connect and they're happy, their needs are met, and they walk out feeling these open feelings because it meets a lot of needs. And who meets the needs? Each other.
Listen, it's amazing. Julie's mentioning the frustration, but not, of course, knowing that there's a model that's been in place for so long. Of course, we respect our educators and we look up to them. Parents look up to them as far as the power that Julie was mentioning, but that frustration of lack of connection. And then to hear Laura on the flip side, oh yeah, I'm feeling the same type of frustration as well as an educator. And that, I don't know why that was surprising. You're a person, you're a human. Of course you would feel frustration, but I think that's a dynamic that we typically miss in these type of environments. We think one has more of a, I'm feeling all the things and the other isn't, but to hear both sides felt frustration and knowing that there's a level of freedom that Julie said that she felt when she went to an ed camp, and then to come back to a traditional model. So that's I'm appreciative to hear that. And you both mentioned some of the same words, connectivity, relationships. So I'm still on this journey with you guys. I'm vested now. I'm vested. So what happens next? You both realize, okay, there's frustration. There's some freedom that parents and educators can both feel when we have a space. Then what? I'm listening.
So that's when the real work came in, and that how do we design this model and be able to roll it out to schools and communities to be able to embrace it and it become ingrained in, so that we're not continuing to do the same thing over and over again in family engagement. So it took us some kind of playing around. Laura was doing a few parent camps in person in her area. And we were really working and kind of fleshing out the model, the different conditions, the processes, and how, because at that point, I was really involved in being an engaged parent.
Yeah.
And I was on a lot of committees and I was attending conferences and things. And I kept hearing, you need to engage families, you need to engage parents, but nobody told you how to do it. It was like there was an assumption that everybody knows how to do this. Okay. Well, it's not natural.
Yeah.
It's not natural to create these conditions for people to connect to each other. So we were messing around with the model, we were creating it, tweaking it. And then COVID happened.
Oh, wow. I was about to ask what year are we at this point. So, okay, we know 2020. Okay, Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So then COVID happened and people were home. They were feeling isolated. There was, parents, schools are community centers. I mean, many communities revolve around their schools. Yeah. And so people weren't being able to connect with each other, getting out. And I remember voxing Laura one day. I said, Laura, we have got to do something. We've been living in this virtual world, you and I, for how many years? We know how to do this. And at that time, Zoom came out with the breakout rooms. And of course, and so I had been messing with it. I'm like, let's do this. Let's pivot the in-person parent camps. Let's try this virtually. Let's see what happens. And so we did. And at that point, we had quite a bit of a following on Twitter.
Okay. I was about to ask who the people were that you were engaging. Okay.
Yeah. So we had been doing a Twitter chat for a number of years. Okay. And so we had a huge PLN, which is a professional learning network. And so we started just reaching out to our PLN on Twitter and said, hey, come join us for a virtual parent camp. We all need to connect. We're all feeling isolated. Let's see how it goes. And so I think the first one was in March. Is that right, Laura?
Yeah, it was like March 20th. It was
of 2020.
So it was by the end of March. And then we did them every single week for many weeks. I don't know how we did that.
What? I was just about to ask what.
It was every single week. We had rooms, breakout rooms, facilitators, training facilitate. I mean, everything. Like I was in high gear on getting people trained.
Yeah.
You know, we were creating the PR images and then doing all the PR. And it was life changing. You know, it was one of those things where this comes up. We can help the world. Like we can help people and grow this and see what happens. We didn't know what would happen.
Wow. Okay. From 2014 to 2020, you're still engaging. I mean, there's 6 years before COVID. Then COVID hits. And in a week or two's time in the end of, because COVID hits in March, mid-March, and you guys are saying by the end of March, you all have just decided, let's just do a virtual parent camp. And then you guys do it every week. Organically, it just starts to grow. Parent camp organically started to grow at that point.
Yeah. I mean, COVID really threw the doors open for us.
Wow.
Because think about it. They didn't know how to engage families in person. They really didn't know how to engage people virtually.
Wow. That's
so kind of backfilling a little bit too. Yeah. So the U.S. Department of Ed around 2015, 16 kind of got wind of the parent camp model. We had been doing things. And so they actually have had 6 in-person parent camps between 2016 and 2020 when we did the virtual parent camps. Because the Department of Ed wanted to engage families. And they found out about this model, and so we partnered with them. I mean, I went out to Department of Ed a number of times. We had a wonderful contact. Her name is Carrie Jasper, who is, I call one of our guardian angels. She was at the U.S. Department of Ed, and I met her at a family engagement conference in Chicago. And the reason I was at this family engagement, now this is kind of trailing backwards a little bit, because that Boxer group study that we did, the book study, 14 of us met in person for the first time at this family engagement conference in Chicago. This was kind of like our family reunion thing. Well, I met Carrie and another person from the Department of Ed, Vicki Myers, at this family engagement, and we taught them how to use Twitter. So we're at this house. So then going forward, they brought Parent Camp to the U.S. Department of Ed. So I'd been out there working with them on the planning committees. We trained the facilitators, so what happened is they were doing parent camps and they were getting calls. Like, how do we do parent camps?
No.
And they didn't have the resources to be able to assist schools or districts and communities to do parent camps. So they reached back out to me and said, hey, can you formalize into an organization so we can have an MOU with you so we can pass these calls to you? So we became formalized as an organization at the request of the U.S. Department of Ed.
Okay, just stop. Okay, let's let that marinate for a second. Okay, you guys are talking. I keep going back because I'm one of those. I'm always interested as to what was the one something that you didn't plan, and it was like I didn't see that coming. The Department of Education asked you guys to formalize it, to make it something more of a model or more of something that they could still bring it back to you, that you guys can field the questions. Am I hearing that right?
Yes.
Wow.
So that we could be the resource for whoever wanted to do parent camps. And that's really what forced us to do that formalization and create that model. Because if we were going to start getting calls, we had to have our act together. We had to know what we were doing and be able to replicate.
Okay.
So that was kind of like the first like real trigger point, I guess, would be that formalization and then COVID. Those are, I would say, the two like real big kind of trigger points for pushing us into like the next phase. So then what happened after COVID, while COVID was going on, we were doing those parent camps, virtual parent camps weekly. Over a 2.5 year period, we had people from 48 states or territories and 7 countries join us.
Wait,
because
I'm sorry. You can't just rush past that. I'm sorry. You just can't rush past these kind of moments. I mean, the Department of Education says you guys need to formalize something so that you guys can be able to, we're going to start having people ask you these questions. And so you feeling like, okay, as you said, let's get our act together. Let's make this thing legit. And Laura, what are you thinking and feeling? Are you thinking, wait, what are we doing? Or yes, we're doing this. Are you guys even taking it in that this is becoming bigger than us, or this is what we were hoping for? What are you thinking and feeling with all of this?
I'm thinking the model. So I'm working on, the purpose. I'm working on the facilitation.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like, how can we do this? And it makes sense, and it scales, and it does this. So I'm working on that. We're working on all this stuff together.
Right.
Like, that's where I'm going to. Like, I remember working on the 3 purposes and the multiple different words, in building the 3 purposes that I went through. Like, I have paper after paper of trying to figure out the 3 words: connect, strengthen, and collaborate. Mm-hmm. Then the facilitator training, like we went through, how do we do this with people? How do we train them? And, what are the key parts? And that's still evolving. Like, as I learn things, as we go through that evolves. And that's kind of one of the things I love so much is training people in facilitation and then watching everyone experience the real relationship building that happens in these circles.
That part.
It's deep and trauma. I grew up in trauma. I have complex PTSD. And so when we are in trauma, we kind of tend to push the world away. We think it's maybe not safe. Our nervous system is coded it that way. And we don't feel safe in rows. And when you sit in these circles and the power differential, there's no one that's in charge. Everyone can access their own power and just listen or share a story. Like, there's power in that. There's just deep, it meets so many human needs. And when our needs are met, we feel open, happy feelings. And then we just want to, like, what can I do? When's the next one? I'd love to help. I have an idea. Like, it opens the floodgates. And it's really, Parent Camp it's an actual way to build relationships, but it's more than that. It's a way to build health and well-being and resilience. Parents go home happy and their kids see it. They're like, oh, my mom's happy. Kids they copy their teachers, they copy their parents. And, one thing that Julie and I are passionate about, when we say the word Parent Camp, we are thinking of the verb to parent. It's not about just parents coming together, because that wouldn't do it. It's family, school, community engagement, but we're coming together to better parent. And you don't have to have kids to parent, because actually we're all parenting each other, just, listening to each other. I'm getting ideas on how to be, or, influencing my behaviors, my thoughts, my feelings. So we're coming together in these circles to go on this journey together, this unfolding, and see what might happen, what we might be able to do for our kids, for our school, for our community.
And yet we wonder, why did it take so long for somebody to figure this out? There is connectivity, and you mentioned the word of sharing the power, or maybe that's the way I heard it. When Julie initially started talking about the power dynamic, where the educators are the ones presenting in the typical traditional models, when you have these parent and educator meetings. And then you, Laura, mentioned what ParentCamp has work to do, which is, what were the three words again? You said connect, strengthen, and collaborate. Were those the three?
Mm-hmm. Those are the purposes of
the purposes. Gotcha. Okay. And then you mentioned the word sharing the power, sitting in a circle versus sitting in a row. It's just like I can visually see all of it, and it makes so much sense that when one person is vulnerable enough to share, then someone else says, well, if they're willing to step out, I'm willing to step out. And the fact that you two were working in two separate areas, still in education, one from a parent side, one from the educator side, but you saw something that was missing. And then this beautiful concept called ParentCamp evolves so organically. Okay, ladies, this conversation, I'm so appreciative of you both sharing the backstory. And I know we've just gotten to the tip, just the toppity tip of the story of ParentCamp and the impact that it has not only had on, I know, you guys, but those who have been a part of it. And you mentioned 48 states, 7 countries or regions, in just a short period of time, just at the beginning of COVID. We're in 2024 now. So I'm sure there's so many more stories, but I do want to, at least before we wrap up today, where is ParentCamp today?
So where we are today is we do a lot of work in the state of Delaware. We have, I think, 10 schools there that we work with.
Awesome.
Some are on their third year. Some have had 7, 8 parent camps. We've been working with schools up in Gary Public Schools Community Corporation. And then we can, of course, continue doing the virtual parent camp, but we've taken that back to once a month. So, yeah, I mean, we're actively involved. We partner with a lot of organizations. Awesome. And we have different versions of the parent camp, as Laura mentioned earlier, the career camps, the industry camps. I do a lot of career camps here regionally. Wow. In the Northern Kentucky area, and a lot of times those are virtual. So we partner with a lot of organizations, especially those that want to increase family engagement in our communities.
That is awesome. Oh, I can't wait to hear more of these conversations. So, Laura, what else will we be talking about, since we have several more episodes to release? What else are we going to be talking about on the ParentCamp Podcast?
Oh, my goodness. We'll talk about some of the schools that we work with and the stories that come out of those. We have coaches. We've got some stories. We've got videos that, we'll link. But we have some great stuff there. A couple things that really stand out are how a parent camp meets universal human needs and the role that meeting needs has on a human's well-being and their feelings. We'll also talk about what is the role of feelings in family, school, community engagement, the role of needs and feelings. Another concept that we'll be moving into is the concept of information. We see information as, it comes from an expert. It's on a website. It's on a handout. We don't see it as coming from the people in the circle or the people in the rows. Information is here to help these people. Like, yes, now go home, run on home, try to fix yourselves, right? And so we got some really juicy stuff with that we can't wait to dig in, and just a whole host of stories and natural emergent things that we can't wait to share.
Awesome. Look, I'm excited, and I hope our listeners are as well for tuning into this episode of the Parent Camp Podcast. And we look forward to sharing more and more information with you guys. So thank you so much, Laura. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you, April. This was we were so excited, but also a little anxious, and I just enjoyed it. I'm really grateful to you. Julie and I are both grateful.
Yes, very much so.
Journey, and I look forward to writing it out with you guys. So again, listeners, thank you so much. And until next time, take care.